Tonight, escalation in the Middle East. The US military launches retaliatory strikes on Iran-linked targets. Police appeal for information over the unexplained death of a father south of Brisbane. A Queensland community is pleading for help to keep the lights on after a dozen outages since December. And the Socceroos crash out of the Asian Cup in the quarterfinals. Good evening, Lexy Hamilton-Smith with ABC News. Nearly a week after 3 American soldiers were killed in a drone attack, the United States has responded. Washington has launched a series of retaliatory military strikes against Iranian and proxy forces in a sharp escalation that Joe Biden had sought to avoid since the war in Gaza broke out.
Unverified footage captures America's response to a deadly drone attack. This among 85 targets at 7 facilities said to have been hit.
3 of the facilities are in Iraq, 4 of them are in Syria. Numerous aircraft, including B-1 bombers dispatched from the United States, were involved in this operation, firing more than 125 precision-guided munitions over the course of about 30 minutes.
The US says the sites are used by Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Quds Force and their affiliates, who they say are involved in a recent surge of attacks on US personnel. Officials say they're still assessing the damage, but believe the operation has been a success. The strikes are retaliation for last weekend's attack on a base in Jordan. At the time, the president said it would not go unanswered. And he's warning there's more to come. Our response began today. It will continue at times and places of our choosing. Let all those who might seek to do us harm know this. If you harm an American, we will respond.
The White House is trying to strike a delicate balance here. It wants to send a clear message to Iran that attacks by its affiliates on US troops won't be tolerated. Yet it doesn't want to hit with such force that Tehran feels compelled to retaliate.
3 service members were killed in the Jordan attack. Today, their remains were returned home. These ceremonies have become infrequent as the US seeks to extract itself from foreign wars. The reverberations from the war in Gaza now threatening to change that. Barbara Miller, ABC News, Washington.
The Iraqi government has described Washington's strikes as a violation of its sovereignty. Syria is reporting a number of people have been killed. Here's more from Global Affairs editor John Lyons in Jerusalem.
This is certainly a major escalation in the Middle East. 85 different strikes in 2 different countries. This is the first time that the US has struck both Syria and Iraq simultaneously. The significance of this is that Washington has not hit Iran itself. It's hit Iran's proxies in Syria and Iraq. It's hit facilities connected to Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard. They're the enforcers of the regime in Iran. The US is wanting to say to Iran, if you jeopardise any of our facilities in the Middle East, there will be reprisals. Both Syria and Iraq have said it's a breach of their sovereignty, and they've expressed their great concern about this. However, it's almost certain that in coming days there will be more reprisals by America, more strikes.
A crime scene has been established after the unexplained death of a man in Logan. The 44-year-old was found in the yard of his Waterford West home in the early hours of this morning. The man was a carer for his father. A family member called emergency services, but he couldn't be saved. Detectives are speaking to friends and neighbours to piece together his final days.
The gentleman that passed away and his family, we owe it to them to exhaust our inquiries. So while those questions remain unanswered, we will be continuing the investigation.
Ex-tropical cyclone Kirrily is continuing to bring heavy rainfall and damaging wind gusts in northwest Queensland. More than 150 millimetres fell near the Northern Territory border overnight, and extensive flooding has isolated communities. The system is expected to weaken in coming days as another low intensifies in the Coral Sea and could develop into a cyclone late next week. It could make landfall between Mackay and Cairns.
If we do get a third coastal crossing over the Queensland coast, it would be the first time in about 5 years or so. So in 2018 to 2019, we had 4 coastal crossings.
Recurring power outages are crippling a small community in Gympie, with residents saying they've experienced a dozen blackouts since December. A long-awaited substation planned for the growing suburb still hasn't come to fruition a decade after land was purchased for the project.
There's been a call to arms in the suburb of Curra in Gympie.
35 years and nothing's changed. It's got worse. We're paying for service, we're not getting it. I'm over it.
The rural residential area has a growing population of more than 2,000 residents. Since December, they've had a dozen blackouts. Palliative care nurse Sharon Woods says one of her patients died in hospital on Thursday instead of at home because they couldn't power medical equipment or air conditioning.
We are all absolutely gutted here today, knowing that they were not able to fulfil their place of preference for the end of their life.
Ergon Energy says its records show 5 recent outages were caused by storms or network faults.
When I called Ergon last Tuesday from work asking about the power supply, to be told by the worker that, oh well, if they can't stay at home, then they're going to need to call emergency services.
Kay Walker says when there's no power, locals can't shower or use toilets, which are supplied by tank water.
It feels like we're stuck in the Middle Ages.
A petition to Parliament is calling for action.
The lights flicker, air conditioning units go out, the generator doesn't kick in because it's a brownout.
Ergon Energy says an electricity network upgrade is currently underway in the Curra region and will be complete in the next 6 months. But residents want to know when this future substation site it purchased a decade ago will finally be complete. Energy Queensland says the site is listed for anticipated future development. Residents say they won't be kept in the dark. Amy Sheehan, ABC News, Gympie.
2 men died in separate incidents at Victorian beaches today. A tinny overturned in rough conditions near Barwon Heads. Later, a scuba driver was found unresponsive on the Mornington Peninsula.
A boat upside down on the shoreline of Raffs Beach at Ocean Grove. Emergency services workers are on the sand. This is the scene of a summer tragedy.
So it's really sad. We saw the boat upturned earlier on. Yeah, it's tough. These are our people.
It's an absolute tragedy.
2 mates going for a fish took off in this tinny from Ocean Grove at 6:30 a.m. Less than 30 minutes later, they were in trouble.
They've headed out through the river mouth at Barwon Heads and come across some large waves. Unfortunately, the boat has capsized as a result.
Both men were in the water. A 61-year-old Moriac man managed to get on top of the boat. His mate, a 66-year-old from Anglesea, was trapped under the tinny.
We believe he was entangled in some rope or possibly the anchor roping, and he wasn't able to free himself, and the surviving fisherman wasn't able to assist him to get him out either.
3 members of the public on jet skis arrived a short time later. They brought the younger man to shore with only minor injuries. Sadly, the 66-year-old was unresponsive. He died at the scene, the 19th fatal drowning this summer.
Ocean Grove is a very safe, family-friendly beach, and for this to happen here, it's a tragedy all round.
Today, surf lifesavers were patrolling the river mouth at Barwon Heads. Conditions early this morning were choppy and the swell was larger than normal.
Because the water pools with the tides, it can get hard to negotiate at times.
It's a good tuna area that they have out here, so there was a lot of boats that were going out through the heads, but a lot of boats didn't want to go out because of the size of the waves.
Hours later, a scuba diver was pulled from the water at Rye on the Mornington Peninsula near the pier at 10 a.m. He was given CPR but couldn't be revived. As thousands are enjoying the warmer weather at Victoria's beaches and popular holiday spots, authorities are again at pains to emphasise you can never be too safe around the water.
It's just a reminder, obviously, this time of year, with make sure you're wearing your life jackets, look after your friends and family out in the water. If there's lifeguards on duty, swim between the flags.
A plea for safety first. Mike Lorrigan, ABC News, Ocean Grove.
A boy has been treated in hospital after being bitten by a dingo on Gari off the southern Queensland coast. The incident happened last night at Bowell Creek camping ground. He suffered injuries to his lower abdomen and was taken from Kingfisher Bay to Harvey Bay in a stable condition. He's the third child to be bitten by a dingo on the World Heritage listed island since the start of the year. The state government has released more details about its upcoming plan to tackle Queensland's housing crisis. $350 million will be invested to cover infrastructure costs for affordable housing developments. To qualify, developers must build in underutilised areas close to transport, schools, jobs and services. The government will also lease state-owned land to developers for a significantly lower cost.
We've listened to industry. We know that there are a whole range of market conditions that are making it difficult, and we're stepping in to help.
The LNP has announced its candidates for the upcoming state by-elections, saying change must occur in the safe Labor seats of West Ipswich and Inala. Long-term public servant Trang Yen is hoping to be the new member for Inala, which has been held by Palaszczuk for 31 years. Local business owner Darren Zanow will run for the seat of Ipswich West after Jim Madden stood down to run in the local government elections.
Inala is a gem. It has unique characteristics and it has been neglected.
It's been Labor heartland for a long time and we are the underdog, but I'm going to give it the best shot possible.
Farmers protesting high costs and climate policies have blocked the border between Belgium and the Netherlands as demonstrations spread across Europe. Convoys of tractors have gridlocked the centre of Paris for the past week, but after government concessions, blockades have now been lifted.
Steamrolling the heart of the European Union.
It's not just the environmental measures, it's the pressure which is on the backs of farmers.
As EU leaders voted to throw Ukraine an $82 billion lifeline, farmers angry over rising costs, falling profits and climate policies took their protest to the streets of Brussels.
No, it was not a success. They don't say anything to us. They did like we were here. But I think it was clearly that we are here.
As night fell, chaos erupted. Eggs were pelted at the European Parliament and bonfires lit. As the hours rolled on, the protests spread to Poland, Ireland, Malta and the Netherlands, where farmers blocked the border with Belgium.
We protested in the Netherlands last year and the Belgians came to assist us. Now they are protesting and we are in solidarity with them.
But in France, where the protest kicked off, a breakthrough after a week of blockades through the centre of Paris.
It's not our job to go and demonstrate, to block the roads, so we're really happy to be going back.
The French government agreed to concessions, including cash handouts and tax cuts.
I'm not completely satisfied. I'm a little sad. I still have big expectations for the coming weeks, months, to be sure that these are not empty promises.
A reprieve in France, but little progress elsewhere. Catherine Diss, ABC News, London.
A fortnight after Taiwan elected a new pro-sovereignty president, its military has been conducting drills to show it will be on alert over the upcoming holidays. Chinese ships and planes operate around the island on a near-daily basis, and it's expected activity could increase as the presidential inauguration in May approaches.
From the skies to the sea, Taiwan's military says it won't let its guard down. On an army base in the south, under a cloud of smoke, soldiers fight a mock enemy attack.
The ROC armed forces have to
prepare ourselves very well in order to defend our hometown.
This exercise simulates what it might look like if one of China's regular drills around Taiwan turned into a sudden assault. It's taking place at a key time, only weeks after the island's elections, but also just before most Taiwanese go on holidays for the Lunar New Year.
Today's exercise includes tactical mobility, assault, and urban warfare.
On the opposite side of the island, sailors practice dropping sea mines. This naval base would be a key target in an invasion.
Our Navy and Marine Corps have already done all types of preparation work to be combat ready. People can feel safe to go on their holidays.
In the face of China's claims over the self-governed island, Taiwan buys billions of dollars worth of equipment and weapons from its most important military ally, the United States.
The training for the modernizations, as well as the interoperabilities and the communication with other friends and allies in the open water like Taiwan, those are all very important and aspect we need to improve.
While these exercises are centred on the island's defences over the Lunar New Year holiday period, the reality is the military is going to have to stay alert for many months yet, with Beijing expected to ramp up pressure on Taiwan ahead of the inauguration of the new president. Chinese state media warning recently that unless President-elect Lai Ching-te abandons the Taiwan independence path by May, the 4 years of his presidency will be precarious and unpredictable. A sign there is no rest on the horizon for these troops. Kathleen Calderwood, ABC News, Kaohsiung, Taiwan.
At least 10 people have died and hundreds have been evacuated as bushfires burn through central Chile. Strong winds are fanning rapidly expanding blazes across several regions, prompting the president to declare a state of emergency. Dramatic footage posted online shows dense smoke blanketing beaches in the popular Vina del Mar region. It comes as a heat wave and drought sweeps across the country. Actor Carl Weathers, who played Apollo Creed in the Rocky movie franchise, has died aged 76. Weathers shot to fame for his role as the cocky heavyweight champion opposite Sylvester Stallone. He's being remembered as an extraordinary athlete by his Predator co-star Arnold Schwarzenegger, while Adam Sandler, who Weathers appeared beside in the film Happy Gilmore, says he was a truly great man. In recent years, Weathers earned acclaim and an Emmy nomination for his role in the Mandalorian series. Back home, and about 4,000 children from remote Australia rely on boarding schools to finish their education. But even at more affordable schools, boarding fees are climbing. The federal government has offered a new scholarship to help a little, but only for a fraction of students. Stephen Schubert has this report from South Australia's La Minya station.
This is the last leg of a long trip for the Fennell family. Up their 64-kilometre long driveway off the Oodnadatta track to their home at Lamina Station in South Australia's far north.
Steve, are your school shoes, are they still good, Dom? Yeah, they still fit me.
The family's second child, 13-year-old Steve, has just made an almost 900-kilometre trip after his first year away from home.
Starting at boarding school, it's a very different change from going from living on a station to living like more in the city. There's lots of new people, like sport. I've never played sport until this year.
But while the tuition fees at his regional Catholic school are modest, the cost of boarding has grown significantly.
It's a massive financial pressure because apart from the school fees, you've also got the associated costs of the travel, which is extensive. The kids' boarding school is 900 kilometres away.
Data collected by the Isolated Children's Parents Association shows the average cost of boarding school has been growing over the last decade. 19% in New South Wales, 22% in Queensland, 18% in Western Australia and 74% in the Northern Territory. And while the federal government provides an allowance which increases in line with inflation, it hasn't kept pace with this rapid growth in costs.
From here at Lamina Station, it's a 5-hour drive to the nearest high school. That leaves two options: distance education
or a boarding house.
Go and log on to your lesson, please, Eleanor.
The family's youngest child still attends School of the Air, learning remotely from home. She'll start boarding in 4 years.
I do want to go to boarding school so I can meet new people. Most of them will be my age.
You got perfect marks that time.
To help remote boarders, the federal government has introduced a new scholarship worth up to $20,000 a year. But there's only 70 of them, and an estimated 4,000 children from remote Australia who rely on boarding schools.
I don't necessarily think it's quite fair how they're only giving out 70, because there's heaps of bush kids that might want it and might need it a lot more than me and other people that might have gotten it.
The Isolated Children's Parents Association wants an increase to the boarding allowance that all remote students can access, which they say would cost $16 million a year.
Essential workers who come to our rural and remote communities, such as nurses, policemen, teachers, once their children get to the age of high school, they usually pack up and leave because sending their children away to school is unaffordable.
In a statement, Assistant Minister for Education Anthony Chisholm said there had been significant demand for the new scholarship and the government will consider additional places in future years.
We live in Australia and everyone here is entitled to a decent education regardless of where they live.
The Fennell family say they don't expect a free ride, just an allowance that will keep up with the cost of living. Stephen Schubert, ABC News, Lamana Station.
Australia has thrashed South Africa by 8 wickets in the first Women's One-Day International at Adelaide Oval. The Proteas were bowled out for just 105, with star all-rounder Marizanne Kapp making 50 before she retired hurt after being struck by a ball while running between the wickets. Alana King was the pick of Australia's bowlers, claiming 3 wickets. Beth Mooney then smashed an unbeaten half-century off just 34 deliveries as Australia reached its target in just 19 overs. The Socceroos have crashed out of the Asian Cup after a heartbreaking 2-1 extra-time loss to South Korea in the quarterfinals. Australia led late into stoppage time and dominated possession for most of the match, but just couldn't land a winning blow.
Devastation, heartbreak from a Socceroos side that will be left to wonder what if.
Pure disappointment at the moment. You know, we're 1 minute away from going through.
With a place in the semi-final on offer in Qatar, the Socceroos found the scoreboard first.
They might put this in! Good win again!
And it wasn't their only opportunity on goal. Australia generating shot after shot.
And he goes across the goal and another brilliant chance.
It gets down to the individual to put the ball in the back of the net, and if you don't take those chances, you get punished.
That's exactly what happened 4 minutes into stoppage time.
Penalty. It is a penalty kick.
The equaliser sending the match into extra time where South Korea's captain stepped up.
It will be Son. It is stunning from Son Heung-min.
They're top quality players that they've got ended up getting the job done for them.
A late red card didn't help Australia's quest to force it to penalties, with South Korea avenging their 2015 Asian Cup final loss.
It's the first time in 17 games that we've lost after going up 1-0.
Arnold's young Socceroos bundled out in the quarter-final for the second consecutive time in the tournament.
That's the big thing at this moment, is what's next, who's next, and that's what I'm trying to do, to find, as well as trying to win games.
South Korea will play Jordan in the semis. Jessica Stewart, ABC News.
A spirited Brisbane Roar have settled for a 1-1 draw with the A-League leaders Wellington Phoenix at Lang Park. After losing captain Tom Aldred in the warm-up, the Roar held their own against the first-place Phoenix, only conceding in the 51st minute. A late equaliser in stoppage time from Corey Brown levelled the match after what's been a roller coaster week for Brisbane. The 9th place side was forced to appoint a 4th head coach this season after Ben Khan took indefinite sick leave.
We only had 2 sessions really for me to try and pick a team and work on some things, some basic things, and I think, you know, the credit for me goes just to the players because, you know, they were outstanding tonight. They showed a lot of bravery, like you say, and they worked really hard.
Formal volunteering numbers have been in decline over the past few years, but a small life-saving club has found a way to buck that trend. A change in how they roster their volunteers has had profound effects, and now others are following suit.
6 years ago, this small-town surf life-saving club was dangerously understaffed.
We were having a lot of trouble meeting our patrol obligations here on the beach.
But a simple roster change has almost quadrupled their volunteer numbers.
We were so surprised at how successful it was. It essentially left us with no gaps.
The Bermagui Club now lets members choose when they patrol.
With the roster, I got to choose my dates that I preferred, so I made sure that most of my patrols were during the school breaks.
The retention's much higher too, because if people have been given a choice about the times that work for them, then they're far more likely to be there as well.
Formal volunteering numbers have been on a downward trend Australia-wide since 2019. Between 2020 and 2023, rates across New South Wales declined by more than 5%.
Bermagui was the first surf life-saving club in the state to let volunteers choose when they patrol. Other clubs have since adopted the change.
Organisations that are successful are the ones that are willing to be flexible with what they expect from their volunteers.
Advocates are certain that the motivation to volunteer is as strong as ever.
Our research shows us that the number one reason people want to be involved is to help. So people are out there, they want to help. It's just a matter of finding a way to utilise them and keep everyone happy.
And this little surf life-saving club has found a way to do just that. Floss Adams, ABC News, Bermagui.
And now to a very surprising story. A Victorian, not a Queensland beach, has been named the best in Australia. Squeaky Beach at Wilson's Promontory in Victoria's southeast has topped Tourism Australia's annual Best Beaches list. The farm at Shell Harbour, New South Wales was number 2 and Cockle Creek in Tasmania came in 3rd. 12,000 beaches are assessed every year, and the man who does it says Victorian sites have long been overlooked.
And people think it's too cold or too wild, but really Victoria Beach, and particularly within the national parks, like Wilson's Promontory National Park, Squeaky Beach was an absolute standout for its pure and honest beauty.
There you go, but you'll be happy to know that Stratty's Cylinder Beach did come in at number 6. Let's take a look at the weather now, and as we heard, the Bureau is watching that system in the Coral Sea, while a trough up north is generating plenty of rain and storms and gale-force winds in both the NT and in Queensland. So ex-tropical cyclone Kirrily still very intense, bringing dangerous flooding to the northwest. Its forecast shows it will slowly move down south across the border late Sunday. A severe weather warning remains in place around Mount Isa and into the Channel Country. From 9 a.m. inland of Tully today, it was pelted with 55 millimetres of rain in half an hour. Now, major flood warnings also continue for the Condamine and the Ballon rivers, the Flinders River system, and the Diamantina is now at moderate levels. To photos now, and here is a vibrant sunrise at Golden Beach at Caloundra, taken by David. Thanks so much. Andrew Rowlands of Mullaney captured Mother Nature in all her glory, looking down at the Glasshouse Mountains. And Creina Moore snapped these locals and Joey enjoying dinner at Stratty's Point Lookout. Thanks, everyone. Now back to that tropical low in the Coral Sea. It's slowly gaining strength and will track west next week, affecting regions, we're told, like Townsville from Thursday, cyclone or not, while the low in the northwest moves down to the southern states, bringing yet more heavy rain and storms before easing. Birdsville topping the chart again at 44, Thargominta hot as well at 43, lows and 30s right along the Queensland coast. Around the southeast now, humidity was a little bit less today at 67%, but it was still really sticky outside. Brisbane hit 32, Ipswich and Archerfield 33. Around the country tomorrow, Perth 27, partly cloudy and a hot day for Melbourne, 37 for Adelaide, 36 partly cloudy day in Sydney and storms expected in Darwin. To Queensland tomorrow, and that heavy rain will continue to fall in the northwest and the tropics. There'll still be some damaging winds east of Mount Isa, we're told, and mild weather and low 30s from Townsville down to Rockhampton. A wet Sunday for Longreach with a top of 40, 43 again for Thargomindah. Birdsville drops about 6 degrees to 37 and similar temperatures for Roma, Miles and Gundawindi. Now, not much of a chance of rain for the Darling Downs and Granite Belt. Light winds and partly cloudy along the coast. For Brisbane, just a 5% chance of rain. And looking at the bay, bays north to south easterly 10 to 15 knot, seas below a metre. And looking ahead, a little bit of rain coming through again to the weekend. And that is ABC News for now. Thanks so much for joining us. Stay up to date on our website. But for now, from all the team, have a great night.